Welcome to the Coast to Coast podcast, brought to you by Play Picks and the Lines. Coming to you from the West Coast, Josh Lander, joined by my guy Nate Weitzer on the East Coast. We've got a 5-game slate here tonight in the NBA for you after a big Wednesday night slate with a bunch of marquee matchups. In this one, we're taking a look at a pretty marquee matchup here. The Denver Nuggets playing host to those Phoenix Suns on the second leg of a back-to-back. We'll take a look at some of the best bets in this one. Nate also has his great article up on playpicks.com with some best bets and player props in there for you. And make sure to like and subscribe to that page. Got a couple other videos up for you today, including that player props video. Look to go another 3-1 or better tonight with you guys. Make sure you're headed to thelines.com, checking out that odds checker, making sure you get the best juice available from odds makers out there. And as always, if you do still need a FanDuel or DraftKings account, head to ftpicks.com or dkpicks.com and find those listings in your area, such as what we've got for tonight. Nate, let's get into it.
Yeah, the Suns, after coming back to beat the red-hot Wolves, they are on a back-to-back, but they open at +3, now up to +4 in Denver. So definitely getting some value there for a team that has not really had a letdown in back-to-back situations or any situation. Not a lot of candidates for rest from a young team that hasn't really rested guys on back-to-backs in general. Whereas the Nuggets, of course, shorthanded aside from Nikola Jokic all season. 4 other games to look at here. We got Cavs +5.5 at Toronto. Total's only 214 there. We've been talking about it for a while now. When the Cavs are on the road, you definitely want to hit that over. I think it's still a good bet against a Toronto team. The other game we will break down is Bulls +2 now at Pelicans after opening -1.5. That total has been bet down to 225 with DeMar DeRozan questionable. Pacers are +12.5 at the Grizzlies, both teams on a back-to-back there. Wizards +13 at the Bucks. And that this game that we're talking about here, yeah, that's what we got. And we got the Suns once again in a value spot. We had that extra episode yesterday just to talk about taking them when you get the money line at pretty close to even. Now you get the money line at plus odds right now, +148 at FanDuel. Totals fluctuated a little, but standing steady at 232. And I think you still like the over here. Denver has been playing faster since the All-Star break. In March, they're number 8 in offensive rating and 17th in defensive rating. They've now gone over in 8 of their last 9 against playoff teams, which is key. And over, they're 5-0-1 to the over in their last 6 overall, 21-13 to the over at home in general. The Suns, as we know, can score with anybody. If you're going to ratchet up the pace, they will happily oblige you. And it's become more of the case without Chris Paul now. They're scoring actually 6 more points per game without CP3. Since getting Booker back, I mean, that sample size is a little misleading because they've had Book back for 7 games now. And they're scoring 125 in those games, and they're up to 5th in pace during that span, going over in 5 of their last 6, and Book averaging north of 30 points per game. Mentioned their ability to keep it up on back-to-backs. Yeah, I mean, they've won 6 of their last 7 on back-to-backs, covered in 5 of their last 7, 9-3 against the spread on 0 days rest this season. And with a rest disadvantage, they're 19-5 straight up versus 12-9 against the spread. We talked about this yesterday where they just have incredible numbers, obviously straight up with the best record in the NBA. They're against the spread numbers aren't as good, but when you get them with a negligible spread, or now you even get them with as underdogs, which is very much a rarity for these Suns. They're 6-3 as road dogs on the season. So I just like taking their money line first and foremost, but I think there's a good way to hedge here by taking the points, by even teasing the points with the over. So you get Suns +8, which is, extraordinary value there. And then the over down at 228 in a game between teams that can score in bunches, to say the least. So I feel really good about that. I also feel fine about the value you get. Just Suns money line and the over is about +350 at FanDuel. And they've been going over every time, as I mentioned, with Booker leading the charge, with more young guys playing without Chris Paul there to kind of slow things down and dictate his pace. of play, they've been much more likely to go over.
Yeah, that's definitely the case. I think I equally like the Suns here and the over, to be honest. And that's not my strongest bet of the day by any means, to be honest, in terms of that over, especially just because 233 is a little bit troublesome for me. But I think even those recent games that you look at for the Nuggets, and we talk about 6 in their last 8 games. At home, specifically the Nuggies, they've gone over in 6 of those. They're 4-4 straight up in March at home over those 8, 3-5 against the spread. And yeah, it's that defensive rating that really gives you a moment's pause and also explains why the Nuggets have faltered a bit over their, in terms of how well they were playing previous to their last 6 to 8 games or so. It's that defensive rating at 120, right? It's 111.5 on the season at home. Really, really good defensive rating at home. But that was their calling card. If you remember, in the first, let's say, third of the season, they were one of the best defensive teams at home with a defensive rating under 100. It's got obviously that was a sample size of slightly less than a third of the season. But then now all the way up to 111. Due to the fact that just in their last 8, it's up to 120. So I think they're struggling on that side of the ball. Their pace is a bit better, or excuse me, a bit faster, better, whatever you want to call it. It's a bit faster, than it has been at times. But really, their offense has also been a bit more efficient over those last 8 games, which is why they've even been able to pull out any wins. As it's up to 118.7. So their net rating is close. It's still negative in their last 8 at home. It's close to even. And they're playing fine on offense. True shooting percentage, that's 7th in the league in that time frame, and they're getting a bunch of second chance points with Nicola averaging about 14.5 boards in those home games as well. But there's nothing else there for them on defense. And like you said, this is a Suns team that has been picking up the pace a ton in March, especially up to 6th in pace. And with that rest disadvantage, somehow they're 19-5 straight up, as you mentioned, which bodes very, very well for a game where you're getting points from them. So I think you just got to attack those points for them tonight. They did have to use a bunch of energy last night, but I just wanted to reiterate their clutch numbers. You mentioned they had to come back. They were down 14 at the half to Minnesota last night. They were down 5 going into the fourth quarter. And they're an insane, historically good clutch team this season. 29-6 in clutch games. Their 83% win percentage in those clutch games is 18 percentage points better than the second place team in that same span. That's the gap between the second team and the 15th team as well. So they're just way better than the field. You look at their field goal percentage, 56%, 7% better than the second best team in clutch time as well. Their net rating is a plus 30 this season. It's unheard of in clutch time. And then even last night, you just look at what had to happen. They were down 5 going into the fourth quarter, another clutch time game, and then they ended up having a net rating of 53.2 in that clutch time per 100 possessions. I know it's only 5 minutes, but that's just clearly where they start to excel. And you have not seen a regression in their clutch time stats since Chris Paul left, as we were giving him pretty much 90 to 100% of the credit for them being that good in clutch time. This is just a team that's incredibly well coached by Monty, and you've got Devin Booker, pulling out assists and really controlling the tempo of the game in a way that I just think they're a juggernaut right now, and there's really no reason to think there's a team that can really hang with them in the West all the way to the finals, in my opinion.
But I like the fact that Denver's been a lot better in clutch time lately. They're 8-3 in their last 11 clutch games, and they have a very good offensive rating, 15 net rating. If you're betting the over, that's definitely good news because Jokic is going to keep up with this team. They're not necessarily going to fold down the stretch. But Denver has not really capitalized on these types of situations. They're only 8-7 straight up with a rest advantage, failing to cover by 4.5 points per game. If you feel they should be listed as underdogs, well, they're 2-5 as home dogs. So they're not necessarily a team that wins these unexpected games, and they're 12-30 against teams with winning records this season. Am I got that right? No, sorry. 13-23.
Yeah.
Still not good versus 30-7 versus teams with losing records. The Suns, again, good numbers against everybody, but 24-9 against teams with winning records. The Nuggies have failed to cover in 4 of their last 6 when they are favored, and 5 of their last 9 against playoff teams in either conference. But Jokic, I mentioned those clutch numbers, and Jokic doing his thing against all Western Conference foes since they kind of had that blip against the Thunder. So I am going to talk about him in player props. I like him to kind of keep this game competitive and score a lot on a Suns team that should be a little tired on defense. But yeah, I mean, when you're talking about your superstar who's like 23 years old and Devin Booker, I don't think that the back-to-back is really an issue. Campaign coming in there with fresh legs. They have depth at the forward position. How that Jay Crowder's back and DeAndre Ayton also very young. So I think that's part of the reason we see no real drop-off from the Suns, still scoring 113.5 on these back-to-backs. And I think the Nuggets will force a little bit more out of them to hopefully get us to the over. But really, yeah, we're just saying, first and foremost, take the value on the hottest team in the league or the best team in the league over the course of the season when they're listed as dogs.
Yeah, and that's, I think, where you feel most comfortable, just because I can make a somewhat compelling case. I mean, the Suns are 6-6 to the over, on the second leg of these back-to-backs this season. And I mean, they played really well in them and won them. But there is something to the fact that 114 points a game for them, giving up only 111 on the second legs of these back-to-backs. I know that, everything with Denver has screamed over as of late. And look, when Denver has played teams that play at a pace in the top half of the league over the course of the last 8 games or so, that's when they go over. I mean, their 2 unders at home in their last 8 were against Boston and against the Thunder, 2 teams that at the time the Thunder were still slowing it down. And Boston, we know, is the best defensive team in the league right now. So not much to surprise you there with those games going under. The other ones, they have gone over. They have gone over the 230 total as well, 233 that it is right now. So it's once again, not my favorite bet, just because of the fact that it's sort of a 50-50 shot to me. I think you have a better shot and better value with the Suns at the very least covering. But if you want to go ahead and take a money line bet for them and get that plus money there, I don't know why you feel uncomfortable if you feel like they can cover 3.5. Getting a little extra juice at plus 150 on their money line doesn't seem like a bad call tonight. So gonna be a good game either way. I would love for the Nuggets to win and for them to win that division, so I could win that futures bet that I made a while back at plus 600. But we'll see how that unfolds tonight. And that is all the time we have for you in this one. Make sure you do like and subscribe to that page. You can check out those other couple of videos we have for you on this little 5-game slate tonight. And until we see you next, happy betting.